Welcome back to this My Challenger Circuit, everybody. Appreciate you sticking with us. Aggro alongside Mifflin to kick off our second set of the day, which is another great one in Europe here, Miff. Elysium up against the accounting department. Two teams locked at 1-1 just 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I almost went through this entire death segment at the tail end of the last one. Luckily, Dave was able to stop me, so maybe I've got a little bit left in the tank to talk about here, but there's going to be plenty. I mean, Elysium up against accounting department, it's just, for my money, two of the most exciting teams in the EU SCC. You got guys who have been around the scene for as long as the scene has existed from both squads.
I mean, plenty of SPL experience across both sides. Certainly the two most experienced teams at the highest level between Elysium and accounting department, but can that translate into wins in the SCC? I guess we got to wait and find out. Of course, our third and final matchup for Europe will be broadcast Saturday morning at 11 a.m. So if you want to see Clay Soldiers up against Just F6, that's when you'll tune in for that. And then our final set of the day today is going to be Average Joes up against Herculean Hoofs. But we got some European Smite to get through, and like I said, these standings are looking awfully close together. After Snake Hunters just taking down Pandemonium, that locks both of those teams at 2-1, and now we'll have one of these teams join them at that 2-1 mark. It's been pretty competitive so far here, to say the least, at the beginning of the EU SCC.
It really has been, man. All these teams are neck and neck. If you told me at the beginning of the SCC that Elysium wouldn't have just been at the top of the pack the entirety of the year, I'd have laughed in your face, potentially even spit aggro. But it seems like had you said that, this theoretical version of you would have been right.
And I'd still have spit on my face, so I wouldn't be feeling that good about it, to be honest with you. I'm glad that I didn't say that and that none of that happened, though I don't know how glad Elysium fans are, because they've got a tough matchup today up against this accounting department squad that a lot of this core was together last year, and the year, they've played at this level before, but I feel like Wolfie rejoining has maybe revitalized this squad a little bit. Of course, if we're talking about the old rival core of Ice, Kalas, and Wolfie and Deathwalker, now Okeanos, their ADC. I mean, this team has still shown that they've got potential to be one of those top-end squads.
They certainly have, and I'm glad that you bring up Wolfie in particular, because he's a player that I've really been keeping my eyes on. I mean, if you were to take just his performance on Obey last year into account, you really probably wouldn't have the greatest expectations. Sure, coming down to the FCC from the SPL should be a relatively nice change of pace for him, but it's a very different playstyle we're seeing from Wolfie this year. He's playing a lot more aggressive. He's playing inside tower lines. It's almost reminiscent of what we saw from Captain Twig insofar as playstyle, not really Godpool.
I mean, he's looked really good so far, and I expect that to continue. It really has to, up against Elysium, who are star-studded in their own right. Of course, everyone's going to gravitate towards adapting in the jungle, but adapting's had a fairly hot and cold start to his SCC career.
Yeah, you're going to be hard-pressed to hear me yes and anything bad about adapting, or even barely medium on adapting, because I am a huge fan of this guy's playstyle, especially this year. I think he's playing a lot more aggressively. Gone are the days of adapting hovering around the side of a team fight, waiting for people to fall low so he can maintain his 30 KDA. Instead, now, I think it's a little bit more so that initiator role. He's playing almost a secondary support, I'd say, just with a little bit more damage.
Hey, that can work out for a lot of junglers. It has across the league. This team, of course, I'm going to be looking at how Wolfie matches up with Angry in that mid lane, because I think that's where a lot of the fireworks are going to end up going off. But it's not just Angry on this squad. Terrorem has had his moments in the SCC, looking very, very strong. Spudio, maybe the best EU SCC hunter. That's what I'm hearing thrown around by a lot of players who have high opinions of him. I mean, Spudio has looked great so far.
He really has, man, and he's got an incredibly diverse god pool. He's playing Chernobog, we've seen him on the Apollo, on her, literally everything under the sun, Jingwei and Hachiman. I'm pretty sure he's just working his way through the entire hunter list, but we got to talk about his partner inside of the dual lane Trix tank as well. I think Mans looks pretty nuts right now. He's always playing that aggressive style, generally on gods like Kuzenbo. We've seen a lot of Sobek as well, but the only consistent thread for all of Trix Tanks' games is where he likes to stand, and it's 80 yards deep in the enemy backline.
Yeah, that's Trix' style, no doubt about it. I mean, Trix, his career speaks for itself. You want to talk about a good set of leaders to have. Between adapting and Trix Tank, Elysium, we understand why their expectations are so high, I think, by a lot of the fan base, because they just have that pedigree on their squad. They go up against a team in accounting department today that has equal experience nearly on the other side. So we'll see which team ends up on top and ends up joining the Snake Hunters and Pandemonium at that 2-1 spot. Should be getting ready to go into picks and pans shortly here between these two squads. Miff, I've been a little bit surprised so far, I gotta say, about the way these picks and pans have gone. Not in the sense that Tiamat has been banned consistently, but Guan Yu has kind of fallen off. I'm not seeing a whole lot of him right now. Athena got through in one of the games in our first set. I'm a little surprised about that. Is that just what we expect to continue here in the EU SCC?
Athena's been getting through pretty consistently, but this Guan Yu disrespect, I'm not going to mince words, the disrespect towards the patron saint of war from China has been a little bit crazy to me. That god's ability to not only heal, but also shred defense, and is just a phenomenal initiator as well, I think is certainly being slept on a little bit right now. But I don't think it's a trend that's going to continue, and Athena getting through seems like that's a trend that isn't going to continue either, already banned out by Elysium.
Smart. I mean, Kalas made his name for himself on that Athena alongside the Ares. So those are the picks that everyone kind of associates with Kalas. Does not surprise me that the Athena gets taken away from him. And then Deathwalker, known for the Wukong, take that away as well. Whereas Accounting Department has one shot in particular at adapting in the Ao Kuang, but then Yamoja and Guan Yu feel more like blanket, just good god bans to go with. And Tiamat is the ban here from Elysium, and Scylla has been the pick that we've seen, I feel like in nearly every game in the EU SCC, gets really heavily prioritized, but is it worth first picking here for Wolfie?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so, especially considering Tsukiyomi's still available, man. I mean, you said it last time around, this god puts a timer on the match, kind of similar how Kronos kind of puts a timer on the match, or Old Hell used to as well. Tsukiyomi's so dominant once he gets a couple items under his belt, but as you already said, Scylla's still available, likely going to get taken up by the other side here. I don't think Elysium is going to let this Tsukiyomi go through for free. They're going to have to get something pretty valuable on their end.
Chernobog is not exactly what I was expecting. I do think Chern is one of the better hunters, but seems to me like a wait-and-see sort of pick. We don't want to tip our hand to our strategy quite yet, so let's just go with something that's likely to not get punished. Chernobog Kukulin leaves a couple picks that have looked pretty solid so far open here for Accounting Department. We already mentioned the Scylla. I think Cerberus has really impressed me so far and what he's been able to do. Apollo still open. I think Accounting Department have a lot of options here.
Yeah, they do. Set still available as well if they do decide to potentially have the Tsukiyomi flex in a solo, or if they want to set mid or something along those lines. Instead, though, it's going to be Kepri locked in first up by the Accounting Department. Still have one pick left available in this phase. I like Kepri a lot, just in general, especially when you've got gods like Tsukiyomi on your team. Piercing Moonlight is a tool that is, for the most part, either going to get you a kill or put you out of position, and Scarab's Blessing is going to be a phenomenal safety net for those scenarios. Just make sure that if the enemy team does decide to look at Tsukiyomi, he got an extra life to make sure he gets out of there alive. And with Aphrodite as well, man's going to have a pretty easy time working through the enemy backline.
I mean, you want to put a spotlight on Wolfie, he's put a spotlight on himself, a target on his back, so to speak, with this Aphrodite pick, but it's for good reason, because Aphrodite who goes unchecked feels unstoppable come the mid to late game. And I love it in conjunction with the Kepri. I mean, she's already so hard to kill. You add in that Scarab's Blessing for not only the Tsukiyomi, but now for the Aphrodite. Feels like a lot to have to chew through, but Elysium are coming prepared to deal with this Aphro potentially. Two gods already in their lineup that have innate anti-heal built in. The Kukulin and the Sobek, rather, both have anti-heal on some regular abilities, and I assume that we're going to see some significant anti-heal picked up in the itemization as well.
Yeah, likely a Tainted Steel going to be picked up by the solo laner Kukulin, maybe to help out with those rotations. He could still elect to pick up that Bluestone if he's more so worried about his own lane, but bans coming through here, as you already highlighted, Apollo and Heimdall from Elysium, and Set and Persephone getting banned out by Accounting Department. There's still a lot of value on the table, and still Scylla has gone under the radar. Instead, Raijin going to be the lock-in for Elysium. That's incredibly interesting. This is a god that has seen a little bit of a resurgence very recently, but still I think is outshined in large part by Scylla, or even gods like Persephone.
Well, with Angry kind of known for the Persephone for sure, but I'm a Raijin lover personally, and I love it up against a god like Aphrodite because his damage is really non-committal. It's a lot of burst damage, but you don't have to dump all those shots from Tycho Drums. You can wait out an Undying Love very easily, and he applies anti-heal very well with Divine Ruin because of the bounce from the Raiju. I personally think Raijin's in a really good spot right now, so I'm excited to see how Angry is going to perform with it. As Jingwei is the pick for Okeanos over there in that long lane. And Deathwalker goes to an old tried and true classic, the Bologna for Deathwalker. One just his favorite god, loves to play it, I feel like. But we don't see it very often, Miff. I mean, what do you think about Bologna's strength in the meta right now?
She's just so inconsistent, right? A god that requires you to land 20 auto attacks is going to have a very hard time getting all 20 of them stacked up, right? But up against this draft from Elysium, I think that Bologna can at least find some usefulness from the disarm. Chernobog and Hunbot's going to struggle once they engage themselves to finish off those kills. The defense block stacks as well if he does elect to pick up a Nemean Lion. Also going to make it much harder for these hunters to fight into him as well. But Bologna has been out of the meta for a pretty long time, and I'm pretty confident that she's not back fully into the meta.
Good character to link with an Afro and dive with, though, right? I mean, if part of the reason why she's not meta is she's lacking some damage, the back off is kind of a big deal in those moments. But a lot of signature picks to end the draft, not only the Bologna for Deathwalker, but the Hunbats for adapting, something that he's played throughout his career. For me, Miff, I mean, I'm just looking at this Aphrodite. Can Wolfie be effective on this pick, or is Elysium going to be able to shut him down? I think the whole game comes down to just that one question.
But they've got tools to make sure that Wolfie is able to get under his feet. I mean, you've got Scarab's Blessing, doesn't have to go towards the Tsukiyomi or even the Bologna, could just make sure that this Aphrodite is a little bit harder to kill. And then you surround him by the strong front line of Tsukiyomi and Bologna, just creating a little bit of space for this Aphrodite. Could help out a lot as well, but can't sleep on Elysium's dive potential. Chernobog can teleport to your shadow, literally. Cullen's just going to walk at you, no one's going to stop him. And then Hunbots has got a teleport and a jump as well as a giant AoE fear. He's going to make way for his team to make sure someone is at least looking at Wolfie.
Yeah, I'm looking for some Captain Twig-esque leap-ins from this Raijin in this game from Angry. I mean, I don't know that accounting department has enough to really punish you for grouping up. They're a little bit low in the AoE department. I think that that's the game plan if I'm on Elysium. We're just going to jump on this Afro over and over and over again until we get the desired result. Of course, that desired result would be a Game 1 victory up against the accounting department. Let's see if Elysium can do it. Let's throw it down to the casters, Dave and Gore, for game number 1.
Thank you kindly, Aggro and Mifflin on the desk. Dolson, Gore, Doug bringing you game number 1 between accounting department and Elysium. And Gore Miser, what a matchup we have here in the EU SCC. Look at the names on both of these teams. Both teams standing at 1-1 in the standings. You know, last week the standings ended with like 4 teams sandwiched at 1-1. We're going to have 3 teams after this game at 2-1, all tied for first, regardless of the way this one goes. Going to be a lot of fun to watch these heavy hitters go at it here in the SCC.
This is one that I would argue it's important for both, right? Accounting department, a bunch of old rival members playing together, like a team that has a lot of competitive history with each other. You expect to do pretty well. On the other side, I mean, adapting and Trickstank. Trickstank literally was on a team last year that absolutely slapped around all of Europe here, and adapting, notably one of the most prominent junglers that we've had in Smite, period. And so you expect to see him do well, but Tarum, Angry, Spudio, like last week, it was less about, you know, the big names, the adaptings, the Trickstanks on Elysium. It was about Tarum, Angry, and Spudio. The games when they were winning had a lot to do with those 3, and when they ended up slipping up there, I think it was, game 2, game 3 last week while they were up against Pandemonium, it was because of their performance maybe lacking a little bit in the jungle.
Wow, look at the start from Deathwalker. Instead of linking up with Ice, rotating through the jungle, going over to the blue buff, Deathwalker just walks over to the Elysium blue buff, solos it on his own, and will still have his own blue buff in the back. He'll get wave pressure on the back end of that as well. Obviously, you're down a little XP, maybe you catch some more of this wave. That's interesting, though, Gore. Bit of a different start from what we've seen out of the solo lane. Okeanos has to use the beads. He'll survive. But already, we're seeing strategic play on one side and aggressive play on the other.
And I really like this because, like you said, that gives Deathwalker, first off, as Bologna, a lot of mana. You don't have to stress about it. Usually your blue buff is respawning by the time it's starting to wear down anyway, and that you're really starting to feel threatened by the mana. But like you said, a little bit of experience early on actually goes a long way for Bologna. All of her abilities are so crucial to making this kit and this boxing match go her way. You get maybe an extra level on Hammer, being able to clear a little faster, a lot of interesting things.
Oh, no beads, but you can dash out of that if you're Okeanos, so you'll stay alive there for the Jingwei, or on the Jingwei, excuse me, for the time being. But this is a worrying trend already. If Trixtank is starting to feel himself on this pick, and these plucks are just going to keep hitting and hitting and hitting, could be a brutal time in this lane for Okeanos and Kalas. We have started to see a little bit more Jingwei, though, Goremizer. That extra survivability and the ability to get out of some of that hard engage has absolutely brought her into the forefront of some of that Hunter conversation. See what Wolfie can do here in the mid. Thunder Crash in from Angry. That'll buy some time. Wolfie walking away, but walking not far enough. Adapting will dash on in. And the Hunbats is on the board first. Adapting first blood on Wolfie. I feel like we've seen this pretty recently, in the last year or so, maybe. Either way, that sounds right.
This is something that I think is crucial. Again, for Adapting, it's maybe getting aggressive, getting that first blood bounty just to make sure that he has a little bit of extra gold. Some of that jungle was stripped away from him there in the form of that blue buff, and so, you know, you're not going to be able to get every rotation I think that you would want. Of course, now with everything respawning, his timers should be pretty much back on track with where they need to be. But more importantly, you stop that Aphrodite. In her tracks, she is not going to be able to be as progressive early on in this game.
Oh no, Ice being collapsed on here. Of course, Trixtank is going to hit the pluck there. Thunder Crash in. Talk about dive. The desk has set it up perfectly, and now it's coming to fruition the first 3 minutes of this game. Adapting now 100% of the kills on the board, both in the back pocket of this Hunbats. He's been a journeyman here. The lack of a blue buff experience boost notwithstanding, and Adapting has made his mark already.
I mean, talk about smelling blood in the water. Elysium just tracked him down. Like, there was not a safe path out of there for Ice, especially without your ult. And even with your ult, the best you can do is really confuse Elysium, but they seem so on point right now, playing as a unit. It seems like it's going to be difficult. I mean, this is exactly the kind of team play that was missing last week, right? Where they're working together. You can see them kind of functioning as 5 pieces of a whole machine, as opposed to just 5 players out here on the field. So it's making it a little more interesting to watch. I'm a little more excited here to see what Adapting's going to be bringing. Plus that wombo combo of a Hunbats plus a Raijin, something we got to see pretty often last year, at least in Phase 1 of the Pro League, a little bit there in Phase 2 as well. A very popular combo, a lot of CC, and the taunt that you can use for the Raijin as well. It's so much that you can bring someone like, let's say, Aphrodite into the fight, even when she doesn't want to be.
Well, Gore, we've already seen what Elysium want to do here, right? I mean, we haven't seen a full sweeping team fight just yet, but you get the idea of this play style of just constant dive in, jump on accounting department as best as you can. Yeah. How much of that gets mitigated, though, once we start to hit this level 5 mark? You're going to have an Undying Love as well as a Scarab's Blessing that you're going to have to fight through if you're Elysium. I think Aggro brought up a good point about some of the non-committal nature, maybe, of Angry and the ability to start up some of that damage, then finish it off once the ultimates and Aegis, something like that, times out.
Yeah.
But that dive is going to get so slowed down, don't you think, once the Undying Love and the Scarab's Blessing start to make their way into these team fights?
Yeah, I think you might have actually just presented my worst-case scenario as a support player. Like, all of the setup in the world doesn't matter with those ults available.
Well, now it's Trixtank that's going to get plucked back in. Unfortunately, he has no Undying Love or Scarab's Blessing, and he's on his own there. Check out the minimap. Nobody from Elysium was anywhere in range, so just a bit of an overextension from Trixtank there. And that's good for getting accounting department on the board now, and it's Ice who needs to catch up in the kills department, not so much in the XP department. He's got a 1-level lead over Adapting right now. Yeah. But getting a kill onto the Tsukiyomi important in closing up some of that gap.
And just making sure he stays on track, right? Keep Ice going where he needs to. This is actually going to be a really crucial gank for Adapting. I think Deathwalker is a bigger threat than perceived. Like Mifflin had said, there's not really a lot indicating Bologna's going to jump back into the meta. I think, last year Ducky was the only person who really brought her out in the Pro League. I'd have to double check that, but like, she was not seen often. She was not seen regularly either, so you really have to wonder where she fits into this. But I do think specifically a buff she got last year into her ultimate, having kind of a better aura whenever she plants that flag down in the Eagles rally, plus like you had already highlighted what Wolfie brings, what Kalas brings, they have a lot of team fight potential that is just going to be undying and an onslaught. I think Elysium are really good in this early game stage where you can isolate a single target, and when you get into this 3v3 as we started to see in mid, it gets a little murkier, but they're still pretty solid. It's going to be a little difficult because those ults are now online for Kalas and Wolfie, but you still have the advantage. If you do not have Hunbats being able to jump in there and throw his ult down, that Fear No Evil, in the middle of accounting department for the late game fights, I think they're just going to be able to walk away with a win.
Look at that pluck on back from Trixtank, but the get back in the root there from Kalas. does some return damage, but Wolfie has taken just way more damage in that engagement. Trixtank might be batting near 100% on his Plex so far, and that's the threat we talk about with this Sobek. I mean, he's launched himself into ban priority in nearly every game here. I mean, my simple brain just says, all right, there's a Sobek in my lane. That's terrifying because he Plexed me. I feel like I'm dead. It's another thing entirely when the player starts feeling themselves the way Trixtank obviously is here. If you can land those Plex on priority targets at this rate, an Undying Love at Scarab's Blessing might just not matter.
There's an interesting dynamic to it, though, because it's the follow-up. I actually really like this. I knew this about Khepri, but I didn't at the same time. They're going for the initiation here. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to find anything. Khepri's 2 applies physical protections to the people that hit it. I knew it applied protections, I just couldn't have told you off the top of my head, even though I've played what feels like a million Khepri games that happens. But if that pluck comes through, and Angry's behind him, yeah, maybe that's not going to make a big difference here for Kalas. But Kalas throwing that out onto someone like Wolfie is going to then give you, again, a pretty hefty, look at that, up to 25% protection debuff. Or protection buff, I guess, in that case. For Wolfie, that means the world.
Yeah, it's important for Wolfie to get out. Might have to use the Undying Love here. The Tycho drums will pull him right back in, and it's Trixtank adapting now on the board. A quick flurry of kills from Elysium. And suddenly they find themselves 400 or 500 gold in the lead here. 3 kills ahead. Now these next few seconds, 10-15, where the mid, the support, jungle, can start to pull that XP and that gold ahead in their favor.
I mean, it's just clean, right? This is the portion of the game where if you're Elysium, you kind of need to hit the gas pedal. You need to get to that, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 if you can really push it, gold lead. I would argue maybe before like that 15-minute mark, just depending on how these teams are going to play. It's Europe, so it could slow down a little bit more, but you've already had a Greater Scorpion taken over there on left, right. They're not going to be too difficult to kill now. They're even less difficult in the patch that came out Tuesday, so when we're watching like Pro League tomorrow, that's what we're going to see, right? And so you already have these objectives that are falling down that really are spawning the important ones, right? This Gold Fury available, if you're Elysium, you want a big fight where you can win it. Spudio getting a 1v1, that would be crucial for them. Then you can teleport over to a fight over there on right, maybe have a big swing, and then Elysium get the next big objective. But the longer it takes, like you said, the closer it gets for Wolfie, the better it gets for Kalas. Last time around, though, we saw that they can deal with those ults. They don't have an execute on their team to burn through something like Kalas and that revive that comes through, but there's still a lot that is going to slow it down. Plus, as was just showcased, you can just kind of kill him before he can use it, and it's not going to make the difference either way. He's already at a 2-level deficit as well, so Kalas is getting bullied pretty hard here, which I think is going to make things a little smoother for Elysium, a little bit longer. Right,
and just so much of this game has flown through the mid and the jungle. Not so much, 100% of the game so far has flown, that's past tense for fly. Flowed? That's the word I'm looking for. Flowed through the mid and the jungle, and it's going to continue to do so here as adapting, looking towards Ice. It's the blink on in. Trixtank, oh, look at the Fear No Evil, it's perfect. But the Scarab's Blessing this time saves Ice's life, but Angry will delay his ultimate long enough to grab the kill on the back end of things. This is clinical, Goremizer, and this is why we were so surprised that Elysium lost their set last week. It's because this level of play we knew they were capable of.
But you get a lot of comfort picks in this one, right? The Hunbats, the Sobek coming through. I think the two crucial members that, again, last week maybe just didn't show up as synergized as we expect, this time around are absolutely working together here. And Adapting's 3-0-2, right? Like, the one game that Adapting played last week where he was just knockout, lights out, exactly what you would expect, nobody else on the team seemed to show up. This is what happens when the rest of the team shows up. It doesn't matter really at the end of the day who's getting the kills, as long as they can continue functioning like this. It's that team fight presence in the Fear No Evil that really is going to disrupt Accounting Department, and that's going to cause them the most trouble. But like you said, and as the desk had highlighted, Beats, Aegis, using things like the Undying Love, those are all going to become very helpful.
Spudio's got to be feeling himself a little bit here. He eats half of his HP and damage, but dodges out literally everything from Kalas and Okeanos. That means Elysium's going to start to put their pressure over here towards mid, or continue, I should say, to put their pressure towards mid. Wolfie's had a tough go of things. All of the jungle pressure from Adapting outside of that one individual kill on Ice seems to have been right around this tier 1 tower. And actually, Gore, if one of the talking points we've had is about how the Scarab's Blessing and Undying Love maybe change things, I'll hold my breath here, see if Kalas is in any more danger than it appears he's in. And he is not at the time being. We saw an Undying Love and a Scarab's Blessing get used there, Gore, and it still felt like Accounting Department were on the back foot in that skirmish just a couple of minutes ago. So I think if you're Elysium, you're feeling pretty good. You're like, all right, we were wondering how this Undying Love, the Scarab's Blessing, would delay this fight, and apparently they've got an answer for it.
And that's why I'm putting a lot of weight on Deathwalker here. I think Okeanos as well, both of them playing a kind of crucial role. Ice already has that crucial role kind of laid out for him. You're in this 3v3, you need to be a little more impactful. That one-level lead is now turned into a one-level deficit. He's just slightly behind where Adapting was. He just ticked over to 12 while Adapting's been sitting there comfortably for a little bit. That's the big thing. You're 2 levels down in both mid and support. Like, as the 3v3 is going, Accounting Department just aren't winning where they should be, or at least should be comfortable trying to defend themselves. And that's where that proactive playstyle, and specifically draft, from Elysium comes in, right? The Plucks, Angry being able to be aggressive because of the Plucks, as well as Adapting jumping into the backline. Like, there's just so much engage from Elysium that there's not much to do if you're Accounting Department because you have such a defensive composition. But when Deathwalker gets there, now you can start fighting. Now you can really jump in there and get to the meat and potatoes of it. But the big problem is when does that start happening and how impactful is it going to be?
Undying Love used. Scarab's Blessing still available. Wolfie half HP back beneath his tier 1 tower. Spudio's popped his ultimate as well. Looks like that one will time out and the Chernobog will stay on the left-hand side of the map. We wanted to see some Twig-esque thunder crashes in, and Angry already shows us one there. The ability to quickly get in, pop a target with that silence on the back end of that ability, I think is going to be important as this game goes on as well. If nothing else, Accounting Department have stemmed the bleeding a little bit. It was an onslaught of kills there for a little while, and Gore, the important thing is, we talk about the kills, we've seen Elysium driving the pace of this game so far, but it has not resulted in that big of a gold lead. We're looking at 200-300 gold maybe. So yes, Elysium are driving all this pressure. They've got the mid lane on the back foot. It's a 2-level difference there in mid. 200 is the gold differential. You got to look at that XP chart. 2,500 is really where the difference is.
I mean, a lot of levels, again, mostly there in support and mid, which is being able to be just a hair over, and some of the others is very important. And that is actually crucial for them as well. Elysium just kind of burned that down, not only for free, but a lot faster than I was expecting. Like, I thought I'd finish a thought before they could completely eradicate what was a Gold Fury there. But that was what I was going to say, was now you have this option. Go get the Gold Fury. Go take that Greater Scorpion on right to spawn a Pyromancer. If your gold lead isn't matching what your experience lead is, then take the objectives that just straight up give you gold, right? Look for some tower pressure, which as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and be honest, there's not a lot in the side of Elysium. Look for something outside of these fights because you're farming the same people, right? Killing Aphrodite a 3rd time is nice, but it's not really going to set you up with 1,000 gold lead. But getting rid of 3 tier 1 towers, all of a sudden you've jumped up ahead of Accounting Department and you have some gold to spend. The biggest thing is because they're so defensive, like, this is actually the best thing for Accounting Department. They might not win every fight, but they will make you feel uncomfortable to dive them.
Ooh, Spudio has to use the ultimate. Beads are down. He'll drop right back down towards Kalas. Okeanos has left, though. Maybe Okeanos thought there was more immediate return pressure coming from Elysium. They back away very early on in that engagement. The reinforcements are here. It's Trick's tank now. Can he weave one more miracle pluck through? He won't go for the engage just yet. Angry was here as well, and the Raijin would have certainly put the pain on Accounting Department. But a bit timid there, Gore. I think Accounting Department had maybe a little bit more time than they thought they had, but better safe than sorry, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you probably could have killed Spudio, but is it worth it, right? Are you going to risk more than you're going to get out of it? I think a kill onto Spudio at this point, pretty helpful. Not maybe as helpful as making sure to keep someone like Adapting shut down. You get rid of Adapting in the middle of a team fight, all of a sudden you've got 40, maybe at this point 30 seconds where you don't have to worry about that. You can start engaging in other scenarios. Whereas if you kill Spudio, he just respawns and ults into the fight, right? Like, he's not necessarily going to be sweating too hard over the end of it. But I'm actually interested to see the fact that they're playing as passively as they are. I do still feel like Accounting Department need to figure some things out. They've reclaimed a lot of the leads. Again, that experience just keeps slowly shifting back over there. Same thing with the gold, shifting back over towards Accounting Department, which for me means that they're playing the map better than what we're seeing out of Elysium. The fact that they're staying into this, I mean, look, they've gone down 1,000 in their experience, 1,100 as they, jump around those, but then the gold still hovering just around 400 despite the Gold Fury not too long ago. Like, you are not playing this map well if you're Elysium, and the team fights are not really coming as easily anymore. You have to figure out where you're going with this, not just Greater Scorpions, but I'm talking Pyromancers, I'm talking Fire Giants, I'm talking Towers. Like, where is your pressure? Because if you don't win the map, you don't win the game. You can win as many little fights as you want, but at the end of the day, your Titan's still the one that falls. You still lose.
Well, Greater Scorpion, you called it, Gore. It is taken down by Elysium here, so blue buff, speed buff receive a buff of their own. Maybe that'll help out Elysium a little bit here. Trix tank hovering just shy of where Deathwalker was, but Deathwalker able to safely make it back to base. All of the map pressure has been pushing against Terrorim so far in this game. The only tower that has been taken down is the one over there in the solo lane, and a small bit of chip damage taken away from the solo lane tower. You're probably going to double the amount of damage you've done to that tower right here, and it's because Deathwalker had to go back to base. So we continue to say his name, this Bologna. How can this pick start to impact some of these team fights? Gore, I imagine we're going to start to find out here in the next few minutes. I think Terrorim, despite being on the back foot, has done a good job, that being said, of keeping himself right there in the level department, right there in the gold department. You've been pushed away from this lane a good bit, but you've been able to keep yourself relevant. Let's look at the build that Deathwalker's gone for, though. Void Shield into the Ichavail, into the Talisman of Energy. We don't get to see this pick a lot, much less this build path.
So this is the thing that I think is realistically going to be, let's just call it Bologna specific, right? I don't think this is a build you are going to see blanket on every warrior. I also don't think you're going to see this exact build every time. Like, I think Bologna is someone that has a unique play style enough that does kind of lend itself to just adaptability. What are you facing? What are you worried about? And how do you deal with it?
Spudio has to use his ultimate to survive this time. Oh, the Fear No Evil is great from adapting. Sends accounting department running every which way. But the re-engage is there, and it's Okeanos who swoops on in, finds the first kill of the game for the accounting department Hunter. That's the delay that we were somewhat concerned about. Elysium dive all in. They can't get a kill. Maybe they were just looking for some disengage, but then the re-engage from accounting department was there. And look at the timing, Gormizer, right when this Fury spawns.
And there's something I was going to juggle. Technically, you get the tier 2 tower if you're over there, so you lose adapting, you get a tier 2. That's a usually worthwhile trade, but you're losing the Oni Fury, you just lost the Pyromancer. You didn't manage to get that tier 1 in mid. The wave was just cleared up by Wolfie before it could knock it down. So that tower, while it technically doesn't exist, it's just a stiff breeze away from falling down. That gold's not in your pocket just yet. Now, despite all of those early fights, that 5-1 kill lead that we've been sitting about and seeing for the last few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, has gotten nowhere for Elysium. And like you said, it's now only 200 gold, but on the other side. That's where things are going to be important. This dynamic shift is really, really deadly, and I think it's going to become even more so as you watch. Again, Deathwalker, this kind of build, it's prots heavy, it's got healing, it's got attack speed in it. That is the crucial portion of it. Bologna is really good at just surviving in the middle of a fight. That's something that she's always done really well. She's good as a team fight god, and when you have something like Wolfie behind it, even if it was a couple of levels down like we saw earlier, now back on level with Angry, you're more than comfortable in the middle of these fights as Bologna to even be an off-meta pick and run the show. I think this is going to be crucial. I'm surprised it took about 20 minutes before we got to see Deathwalker rotate in, but I'm also happy that Deathwalker waited until that comfort was there to move in, to get ready for this fight, and now find themselves kind of leading the way. If this Greater Scorpion goes down their way, this side of the map, I honestly think the blue buff, it's like purple, blue, speed, red to me in terms of like empowered buffs and which ones are the best to get. But you're still going to be getting something crucial, and that again is more experience, more gold into your pocket. As close as this game is, every single anything, experience, camp, even the mini harpies is important.
Oh my god, look at Deathwalker just wailing away on Terrorim. That's what the Ichavail will bring to the table for you. If nothing else, Deathwalker kept Terrorim out of rotating into the fight. So a lot of what Cocoan wants to do, which is some of that bullying early on in the game, hasn't been able to do at all. Whether that's because of Deathwalker, just the state of the game elsewhere on the map remains to be seen. Double plucks there, both of them going wide, one a dodge, one an engage that just missed. Now Terrorim looking for the big knockup, and he's found one onto Ice, adapting around the backside finds a Fear No Evil, but it's the re-engage onto the jungler from Ice, and he'll grab the kill. Elysium starting to re-engage on this fight, but it's going to be the dash away, and accounting department happy with the 1-for-1 trade. Kalas goes down. Adapting on the other side falls as well.
I mean, you trade 1 for 1, but jungler for support, I'm absolutely happy with that, right? The biggest thing is that Kalas doesn't get that ult off, which maybe is a little unfortunate, right? If you go down, you at least want to use it on yourself before you die, but then you talk about cooldowns. Well, will I have it for the next fight? Do I want to save it? And things like that. Eventually, your respawn timer is going to be so long that you'd rather be alive than save it for the perfect moment and that perfect save. But there's enough pressure here without adapting on the other side for Elysium that you still get to run the show a little bit if you're accounting department. Again, it's not the runaway victory that you would like with a fire giant and then you start knocking down the rest of those 5 towers, but it's still something that you get to come through. And that's the other big point that I kind of look at is there's 5 towers up versus the 4 for accounting department. There's so much gold on the map for both teams that really that first team that gets the fire giant, that gets that big swing, that's when they'll finally be able to cement themselves a lead.
That's right, the left side of the map wide open now for Elysium. If there's a world where they want to group up, start to put some pressure on this Gold Fury, or the Fury when it spawns here in a couple of minutes, and then maybe start to look towards the left side, get some pressure there on that Phoenix. It's the ideal Phoenix to have down if you're going to be looking for a Fire Giant over the next couple of minutes. But the threat of just leaving this side of the map for long enough is scary enough, because the accounting department, if they're privy to that, would likely have enough damage to get this Fire Giant done quickly. Pyromancer here as well, both teams starting to collapse in. Look at Spudio though, he is going to put some pressure on the left-hand side. Having that global ability certainly opens up the chance for you to split off on this map a little bit. Ice is going to be there, clear out some of this wave, but you're just trying to slow down, mitigate how much pressure this Chernobog can do before he has to get into the fight.
And I'm excited to see, because the Hunters, I mean, Chernobog, like, he's got 5 assists, but that's more from the ult than it has been really anything else. Like, I'm excited to see what they can do when they really get hands-on over here. Okeanos is coming over into these fights. This is where I think things will start shifting, because objectives like that will start going down a little bit quicker, right? That Pyromancer would die so much faster with Spudio in the neighborhood. And that's why you start to see him making this rotation. But again, for Okeanos, you have to be over here. You're Jingwei, you're limited with how far away you can be to join the team fight. Spudio can be anywhere he damn well pleases on this map, and he can just teleport right on in. He will need a little assistance when he lands, just because of the fact that he lands in enemy territory, but outside of that, he's more than happy to go ahead and split push. I mean, there's an exposed Phoenix over there on left. If you're able to get some pressure down anywhere on the map, then you're more than happy as a Hunter.
We'll see where Spudio chooses to go here. He's rejoined the rest of the ranks of Elysium. So maybe a more immediate impact is what they were looking for as a squad, but now he'll start to lurk his way on over towards the left. Let's see how much damage he can get done to this Gold Fury. Can he do it alone? And at this rate, it looks like yes. Can Elysium now back off in time to lay this fight? You're going to lose a 5v4 likely without your Hunter there, and I think smartly back off to right around that blue buff, so it's a free Gold Fury on over to Elysium, but it's the immediate reply from the accounting department. Fire Giant started up, half HP. Look at the damage that accounting department are pouring into this objective. Spudio's going to have to ult if they want to contest this immediately, but accounting department actually pull back. They don't want the objective just yet.
It's that question of who's going to use their ults first. How are you going to engage on this one? I think they want to burn something away from Angry, maybe away from Trix Tank, but probably adapting. I look at Fear No Evil. I never want to get a Fire Giant incredibly low while that's available. If all of you get feared and last hit ends up going the way of Elysium, then there's your lead. You just tossed it right down the drain. And now with that Gold Fury going the way it did for Elysium, they've got enough of a lead that if you let this Fire Giant slip through your hands, that might just be the final nail in the coffin for accounting department. It's going to be a massive swing in their favor. You've got barely a tier 1 over there and right, a couple of tier 2s. That's all that's left defending that Titan. So pretty easy to knock down, even though, no, it's not even until the next patch from when this was played that those tier 2 towers get a little bit of health added onto the top. So they don't even have that protection going for them. They're feeling themselves deep down inside. They know this could be the last fight. They have to be careful with their engage. And that's why, I keep going back to one person. I'm going to keep looking at Deathwalker. I guess a little bit at Collis, right? Who's going to engage, and how are they going to do it?
Well, Deathwalker is being engaged upon, but it's the immediate return with the ultimate. But Deathwalker backs away. It was a defensive use, or maybe looking for an engage, but the follow-up was not there. Trix Tank ult down. Deathwalker ult down. That's important. If Trix Tank goes in, misses a block, or even hits one, That kind of get-out-of-jail-free card is now missing around this FG fight. Small skirmish score with maybe big implications.
It's just those, like you said, those crucial little details. You also burn the beats from Angry, right? That's going to be huge in terms of engage if they can get back there. The only thing down on the other side now, outside of the Undying Love, was going to be the Blink.
Wow, the beads, the Undying Love, all of it used on the defense if you're from Accounting Department. And look, adapting around the backside, the Fear No Evil, it's huge. And it's going to be the Scarab's Blessing, but Kala stays right where he is. In the meantime, Deathwalker on the backside of the fight has free and clear swung away on the backline, but Adapting does not care. It's a double out of the jungle, and Angry makes it 3. Big fight here for Elysium.
They just got too separated. Now Ice isn't going to be able to back in time. There's too many members lurking in the water.
Ouch.
Deathwalker gets that one consolation prize kill onto Spudio, and maybe that slows things down a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not a big sweeping victory. Look, there's still 30 seconds before you're really getting any backup here for Deathwalker. Ult's available. I mean, yeah, Hail Mary play, you can try to steal this Fire Giant, but we haven't seen a lot of people go for those style of plays lately, because 9 times out of 10, you just end up staggering yourself and losing a little bit more. So it should be a free Fire Giant for Elysium. This will be more of an indication of what Deathwalker wants to do. It looks like defending over there on left is the call. You get the respawns coming through just now for Collis, just now for Wolfie. 10 more seconds on Okeanos and 20 more there on Ice. Again, this is maybe the freest Fire Giant. This should theoretically go into the snowball that is the end of the game. There's only 2 towers left. You knock down a Phoenix. But then I look at this defense, Dave, and that's where things fall apart for me. I'm looking at an Aphrodite, Kepri, as well as a Bologna to fight under a Phoenix. Like, that's a scary thought to try and dive into. And they're not going to be as separated. The glory for Elysium in that last fight is because Deathwalker's on one side of the planet, at least Fire Giant Pit in this case, and then the carries, at least the healers, the support team that you need back there is on the other side. They get rid of Wolfie, then they get rid of Collis. They're the first 2 targets down. From there, it's easy to knock down everybody else because they don't have the same survivability as they would otherwise. Under Phoenix, they're going to be pretty close together no matter what. It's a little easier for Wolfie to change targets under a Phoenix, easier for Collis to get the right target onto, say, Ice or Okeanos or even Wolfie if they dive him under a Phoenix. So adapting even more crucial. That blink cooldown's going to be important to keep your eye on, but mainly that blue diamond on the right side of the screen. If he has his ult, that's going to be better.
Deathwalker in first, adapting Fear No Evil on the backside. That gets the Undying Love out of Wolfie here. Tons of dive happening, but it's a massive cleave damage from Elysium that's found its way onto Accounting Department. Collis has used a Scarab's Blessing, but look at the delay from Elysium. Double kill from Spudio, 3 members down from Accounting Department. Collis has to escape. Ice is a no man's land. This could be a game-ending push from Elysium.
I mean, at this point, there's not much you can do to defend it, right? The bit worst thing is Adapting's run all the way down there, but it also means, guess where Ice is?
Back.
Nowhere near to be able to stop this one. And like you said, if you can just stop the back, even if you don't, I don't think it's going to matter. But he not only stops it, he might even get this kill.
Yeah, Ice has maybe the duel potential, but this
one
almost doesn't matter. Look at the Titan. Titan will fall. Elysium, they have amazing team fight here. It is the Deicide. It is the Titan that goes down in 30 minutes flat. Elysium will take game number 1. Gore, not without its struggles. It looks like this is a game where Accounting Department are just keeping themselves alive. But finally, that team fight, that dive, just the legs caught up, the rubber hit the road, and Elysium ran away with it.
I feel so bad because I hyped up the team fight from Accounting Department. I thought it was going to be a lot more spectacular than it was, but every time it was the same thing. Everyone got separated, they killed off the support team, and then they just knocked down the dominoes that were left afterward. I guarantee at the very end there, they were feeling so confident that Adapting's probably telling them to not kill the Titan just to make sure he gets that kill. Because, I mean, they were just so in control of everything at that moment that there was nothing really to sweat about.
Yeah, fantastic game number 1 here from Elysium. Signs of life, though, from Accounting Department. This set is far from over. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll break down game 1 and set up game number 2.
Welcome back, everybody. The only thing more comfortable than Elysium after going up 1-0 over accounting department is my dog Mackenzie, who laid out here and has been excessively comfortable ever since. Look, Elysium really do a good job there in game one. Good point, Tyler, in my ear. Maybe I'm as comfortable in my Maxonomic chair. Maybe Mifflin as well. We're all very comfortable in that way. Miff, I mean, Elysium, they really utilize their team fight composition to perfection. We talked about their dive looking very, very good on the desk, and that came to fruition as Angry and Adapting in particular really made it hard for anybody on accounting department to live in long enough to deal some damage.
Completely agree, man. Every single one of these team fights were won and lost in the first 10 seconds of the team fight. I'd say the second Fear No Evil was used, that's when we really knew that Elysium was getting off to the right start. But I think it really comes down to the P's and B's and what you highlighted originally, in that accounting department really lacked the potential for AoE damage. They didn't have a way to disengage or dissuade Elysium from just holding down their W keys. The second they fell behind, I don't think they had any comeback mechanics.
Not even a little bit, and Wolfie taking this spill early on really was the beginning of the end, it felt like. Maybe we're being a little bit too one-sided here. I mean, accounting department did keep this game close in the Golden Experience, but it never felt particularly close. It always felt like Elysium had the game in hand. It was just a matter of getting it done, and got it done they did just around this 27-minute mark. This one was really the straw that broke the camel's back. A well-played game by Elysium, and highlighted by Adapting at 7-2 and Angry at 3-0. I thought those two in particular. They got the first blood in mid, and they didn't stop there.
Yeah, I mean, you know I'm going to sing the praises of the jungler given any given opportunity, and when Adapting's on the screen, that is an opportunity. You already said it's 7-2 for the Hun bots over there, but my man's was initiating fights, he was disengaging fights, he was picking up kills, he was doing everything that his squad needed him to. I want to see a little bit more from Ice in Game 2. Accounting department put a lot of focus onto their jungler, picking up that Tsukiyomi inside of the first slot. I think you're going to need to expect a lot more if you're going to dedicate that much of your pick priority towards him.
Well, he's the only one above 10,000 player damage on his team. Felt
fair.
like he was doing good DPS, but ultimately not enough to get some of those kills. Probably some of that being the low damage numbers across the board there for the rest of the squad. Trix Tank as well, very, very instrumental in that game. That Sobek pick looking very fearsome, as it always seems to do in Trix Tank's hands. Think that it's just time to go back to the drawing board now for the accounting department. The Afro composition didn't work. Clearly, this Elysium squad pretty well equipped to handle a healing composition like that. Now it's time to go back and see what else accounting department has cooked up for game number 2.
And I'm sure they've got plenty back there as well. I mean, they've got an experienced coach who's likely watching that match and already making some adaptations, coach being that Alpha Jackal guy you may have seen on the casting team. I want to see more from accounting department. I want to see them go back to basics and use a standard draft. Give me an AoE mage out of mid, a standard assassin, maybe even a little bit slightly more aggressive guardian out of support. But either way, I know that game 2 is going to be a lot different. I know accounting department's going to look a lot better.
Let's see what their draft looks like. Game number 2 ready to go as Mackenzie getting into an even more comfortable position back there already. Doesn't take her long. Accounting department still in that first pick position. We saw heavy priority on making sure that Adapting didn't get that Ao Kuang. And then, of course, things like Athena and Guan Yu were ultimately banned away. And I don't know if there's anything on Elysium's side that you go, well, we can't let them have that again. I mean, you can't really afford to ban Hunbat in the top 3. Raijin certainly not in a top 3 god. Maybe Sobek is the pick that you try and take away from them. But overall, I feel like Elysium kind of just beat them straight up. And that makes picks and bans kind of difficult because I don't know where Elysium makes their adjustment except for in their own picks.
Yeah, I think really it is going to be the picks that accounting department are going to keep their eyes on. As far as bans are concerned, you already hit it, man. I think they're going to be largely the same. You don't want adapting running the Alkwong, but already we are starting to see an adaptation. Chernobog in that second slot from accounting department is going to be interesting, maybe trying to limit a little bit of what the Hunter's able to do on the side of the Elysium squad. But as of right now, I'm really expecting a lot of the same. And if accounting department is afforded the opportunity to go back towards that Tsukiyomi, I think they should.
Well, this is going to be interesting because now either Tiamat, Guan, or Yamoja is going to be open. At least 2 out of those 3 are going to be open based on these bans. So we'll see what Elysium wants to take off the board. It is that Tiamat. So now you've got your option between Yamoja and Guan Yu. So Sustain is the name of the game, it looks like, at least early on in these drafts. You could try and leave both open and see what the enemy team's going to take with Tsukiyomi. But I don't know, man. I mean, if I'm Elysium, I just snap lock both Guan and Yamoja, deny both to the accounting department, and then we handle the Tsukiyomi just like we did in Game 1.
Yeah, I was, when I said go back to Tsukiyomi almost immediately, that's before I saw the Apollo ban come through. I was expecting it to be either Guan Yu or Yamoja to at least limit a little bit of what Elysium could go for, but aggro, it's a little bit different. Heimdall getting locked in first up overall for the Elysium squad. Guan Yu and Yamoja, as you already highlighted, still available, and they could still certainly take one of them, but I think it's going to leave the other up for accounting department, and they should take it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Spudio having 2 bans thrown his way between the Chernobog and the Apollo, now you're looking at making sure he gets what he wants. They decided to go with the Sobek instead. I mean, Yamoja's taken how many nerfs, Mifflin? You know, I suppose at some point she's probably going to fall out of the meta.
Hey, fam.
Maybe now's the time. Maybe we're starting to see that happen. It seems like she's gone by the wayside as still Guan and Yamoja up and available. Though it's worth noting that Guan, I don't think was picked or banned at all in set number 1 today. So maybe the European region as a whole starting to move away from some of those healers.
Instead, Jingwei and Aries is going to be locked in on the side of accounting department. Very interesting locks here. Could see Deathwalker take this Aries if he so chooses. Maybe it's just a pick away from Kalas, making sure he's not able to get exactly what he wants. But either way, it's a very interesting top 3 from accounting department. As you said, Yamoja and Guan Yu starting to be straight away from by the European SCC. As is Set, by the way, who is still available. Persephone's still out there. Scylla makes her way through as well. But I eat my words almost immediately as Set gets locked in.
Yeah, there is the Set. So good flex pick opportunity there for Elysium. We know that Adapting can probably play it. Terrorem as well has that option. You could even potentially put it in mid for Angry. We've seen that at the SPL level. We'll see if Angry's been working on that in the mid lane pool. As the Ares pick up on the other side, when we were talking about the signature gods for Kalas, it was Athena and Ares and Fafnir. Those are the 3 I think of when I think of Kalas. So making sure he gets one of those with the Athena band away makes a lot of sense to me. As Giannis is taken away from Wolfie, another one of his signature picks. I don't think you're really too scared of him going back to the Aphrodite after game number 1, so it lets you take away some of those more traditional options for him in the mid lane.
An accounting department matching up some mid bans with some mid bans of their own. Persephone taken off the table by them. But there is still a lot on the table. As you said, I'm not too worried about Aphrodite if I'm on the side of Elysium. I'm very worried if I'm accounting department. I don't want to see Aphrodite get locked in with this draft because already looking at the 3 picks selected by accounting department, we're still lacking a lot of AoE damage. Maybe something like a Raijin or an Agni can make up for that a little bit. We know that Wolfie's got plenty of experience playing gods like Poseidon as well. I think he'd be very well suited to that role.
Yeah, agreed. I think that we could definitely see that. I love the ESET ban, though. I mean, even with the strong picks like that Poseidon, I mean, obviously Wolfie's Ra is up there, but definitely known as an ESET player, so taking that off the board. She's starting to all of a sudden snowball in popularity. I'm seeing her banned in a lot of my ranked games. I mean, Sino's power remains unmatched, it seems like, as he has single-handedly dragged that god into the meta. We'll have to wait and see what Wolfie's going to pick, but we know it won't be that one. As Kakullen comes through here for Terrorem, that means that this set likely now in the jungle, but still has that mid flexibility potential.
Yeah, could go into that mid lane if they want to pick up a magical jungler, but still not great magical jungle options available on the table right now. Alkwang already banned out. Could potentially see Chang'e or Hebo if they really want to get fancy with it, but it's hard to say. Accounting department, on the other hand, keeping it a little bit more standard, locking in that Osiris likely going into the Soul lane. Ares potentially going to the support, as Kalas is very comfortable on that pick, and Tsukiyomi in the jungle. Accounting department have a very easy to track composition, and with Agni rounding out their side, really is going to make up for that lack of AoE damage. That Rainfire going to be a phenomenal tool just to make sure that anyone on the side of Elysium can't feel too confident just holding down the W key.
Yeah, good call on that Agni pickup, and I think it's exactly what this accounting department composition needed. They're really light on hard CC. I mean, you've got the root from Osiris and the stun from Tsukiyomi and knock up from Jing, and that was it before this Agni pick. So getting some hard CC. I'm still a little bit skeptical that it's going to be enough hard CC to pull beads, and that's what's so important about these Ares compositions, is that you've got to put pressure on those purification beads, because otherwise no escape looks really lackluster a lot of the time. Personally, I'm not sure the Agni's enough to put pressure on those beads here for the accounting department.
Yeah, Noxious Fume's not the best tool to burn beads away. That stun's not very long. If outside of Ares' ultimate itself, it might really be up to Tsukiyomi with the Kusari Gamma to burn away some of these beads from his targets, but already Elysium have pretty good CC immunity across the board. Heimdall, Sobek, Kakullan, and Scylla all have CC immune ultimates. They're all likely going to have beads as well. Accounting department going to have a very hard time burning through those defensive relics to make sure that this Ares is able to get value from his own ultimate. But the cripple in of itself from the chains from Ares should get value no matter what. Set's going to have a very hard time engaging. If he's the fastest gun in the West, he could just stop Sobek mid-pluck. Something along those lines. A little bit hard to expect, but certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that Ares is looking at that set as the most positive matchup on the other side, but Elysium picked the set into the Ares, so clearly Adapting is not too worried about that matchup. I'm just a little bit worried that accounting department's composition here is high execution. You've got to land your stuff freehand the vast majority of the time in order to make this composition work really well. Elysium feels a little bit more point and click, specifically as long as Trix Tank is landing those plucks. I mean, he's got to make it work, but it's Trix on Sobek. He's been doing it for years. I've got no worries about that.
Yeah, accounting department has some pretty hard skill shots to land. You miss a chain inside a team fight, you've lost that team fight for the next 12 seconds until chains are available again. If you're not landing your stuns, you're likely losing the fight as well. As you already said, Elysium, it's going to be all up to Trix.
We'll see if Trix can lead to the 2-0 for Elysium. They're trying to match up with the top end of the EU SCC. Let's see if they can find the 2-0.
If you're going to hang it on a guy who is hitting effectively every pluck in game number 1, you're probably feeling pretty good here. If you're Elysium going in to game number 2, Tarum on the Kakullan, adapting on set, angry on Scylla, Trix Tank, Sobek, Spudio, Heimdall, Gore. Straight out of picks and bans, it just feels like Elysium got basically everything they wanted.
Yeah, they're not feeling uncomfortable here, are they, right? You get a hyper carry in the form of Set. You have Angry on what I would say is one of the more comfortable gods that we've gotten to see Angry on. I think he has a very wide god pool. They have a very intricate god pool, but I've seen them frag out on Scylla, so you know what? Go back for it, right? Make it look good the way we know you can. And realistically, you do have Spudio. I actually think taking a little bit of a sacrifice in the sense that he's not going to be able to instantly transport to every fight, and he's not going to as easily be able to get the assists that he tagged up during last game. But he's playing someone that's very safe and a very heavy hitter in Heimdall. So like you said, even then, you come out on top. This is going to be an interesting one to see. Just around the 3v3 in mid. You already have, like you said, Trix Tank kind of on fire from game number 1. I want to see how Adapting translates from the Hunbats, where he's kind of the guy to set everything up, onto this set where he needs a little more setup, I think, from his team to make sure it all works out.
Agreed. That's such a good point here for Adapting. I mean, Hunbats was just walking in, fear no evil, a couple members of the accounting department in game 1. And then those fights felt like they were over if a Fear No Evil or a Scarab's Blessing didn't slow things down. Now, he's going to play a lot more of a damage role. He did plenty of damage in game 1. But now, as you put it, Gore, relying a little bit more on the setup. I like some of the changes, though, that being said, that accounting department have taken. I think Wolfie, the Undying Loves were there. I mean, you're able to press that alt button depending on who you're linked to, and that's well and good, but the damage numbers really shied away. Near bottom of the damage charts. Let's see if Tarum can complete the 1v1. Oh, of course he can. Deathwalker on the Osiris goes down. Didn't really see the first half of that engagement, but Tarum just walks under the tower, hits level 3 first, and grabs first blood.
I don't know if I needed to see the first half. That second half was so indicative of how Taram's feeling. He has no qualms beating on Deathwalker and forcing him into an awkward position. You get the teleport out from Deathwalker there as well. He did not have a starter item, so Deathwalker didn't have a lot to fall back on. Technically, he gets boots a little bit faster because of it, but I feel like he's at a deficit right now.
Adapting, uses the beads. Wolfie is
Good
here.
stun.
There's going to be a stun. There's going to be a kill on the back end. Deathwalker immediately answers for his crimes with a kill of his own. Assisted, though, by Ice and Wolfie. And that's a point I was trying to make a moment ago. Game number one, you know, Wolfie, more facilitator, Healy bot type of pick there. In the effort, I might not be able to make the point yet again. Kalas has to walk away. Nearly enough damage from Trix Tank. But Kalas will survive for the time being. Spudio there as well, providing a good bit. And this is maybe what we should just expect here, Gore. If Trix Tank is playing this pick, the enemy team duo lane just going to be beneath their tier 1 tower for the onset of the game.
Yeah, at any point, if those changes don't quite connect, then you can guarantee control of the map, or at least the lane goes over to Trix Tank, right? If Kalas is not able to lock him down and cut that off, all of a sudden Trix Tank gets to just run supreme, run freely over here. For the most part, I think Jingwei is not going to, like, suffer a whole lot, but you can definitely feel her clear is not going to be the same as what you're getting out of Heimdall. Like, it just feels easier for Elysium on this side of the map. And so they need to, again, find those. So those moments where you can stop Trix Tank from being as aggressive as he was last game, those start to switch things back into your favor. Any chains that go and create that opportunity for you will be solid. Or a nice rotation. Wolfie showcased what that stun could do there in the jungle. I think you have to look towards him. Rotations to the duo lane, that's another good swing point.
And I'm finally going to get this point across, I hope. We'll see if adapting maybe slows me down here. Wolfie, this game, I'm going to make it quick. Wolfie this game on a pick that can provide some of that same utility and lockdown while also pouring out the damage that we did not see from the Aphrodite in game 1. I mean, Wolfie was near the bottom of those damage charts, granted somewhat expected or somewhat forgivable maybe given the pick he was playing. But this Agni now has the chance to provide setup and big damage numbers, so this is a big one for Wolfie.
There's going to be that pluck, Dave. And again, it's that safety of Jingwei that gets you out of there, and that safety that I think is what Okeanos is relying on. But you can start to see a really big divide. One level up for both Trix Tank and for Spudio over there. I'm really worried about the duo lane falling behind. I think everybody else is going to be able to stay on par, if not even find a lead because of their 3v3 and the way these fights will work. But I feel like if you don't get a rotation to the duo lane pretty soon to stifle Spudio and Trix Tank, they might start spiraling out of control and really be able to take charge of this side of the map.
Ice has been hovering, and now maybe it's going to get to move in on a bit of a counter gank. Okeanos has his beats ready to go, and then of course the dash that we've mentioned as well to get out alive. Adapting is here though. Kalas now getting engaged on, does not have his ultimate. That's only a level 3 Ares. Is the range damage enough? No, it's not. Oh, but Spudio's got it. The sword comes crashing down, but here comes Ice. He's got the piercing moonlight to get back in, and of course Trix Tank will provide a bit of peel for the rest of his team. Wolfie rotates on over from the mid lane. The stun, the damage, the kill is there for the accounting department, and it's Wolfie on board. Both of these teams going back and forth in the kills.
And I guess support for support, honestly, maybe a little more worthwhile there for accounting department. Like you said, it was the level 3 Ares that kill comes down to versus what is now that level 5 Sobek as he falls down. A little bit of a juggle up, no matter how you want to toss that one. Ultimately, I see that First Blood bounty's kind of the only true separation between these teams. That 600 gold on the side of Elysium, really the only big lead that's established at this point. But I think it showcases the dynamic. Last time around, that would have been a Fear No Evil that would have absolutely separated and pushed back Ares into the fight. There wouldn't have been a question about whether you could even get under the tower. He'd be dead long before then, and that's where this set's going to come through. Right now, I think this is a slower roll for adapting. Still already making a bigger impact than I think most people would think of a set this early on. But now these next few minutes, you'll start to see him a little more often. And then by the time we hit, let's say, level 15, he's going to be a part of every integral fight. I think he's going to be doing pretty solid in terms of kills as well.
Taram, the solo kill man, now wants to engage on a team fight. Kalas, still level 4, just has not been able to get comfortable, half HP on the Ares. And it's so important, Gore, not only to stay alive, obviously, if you're Kalas, but so much of this pick, right, feels like it revolves around burning beads, or engaging on a fight where beads are burnt. I mean, there's 3 sets for Elysium that you've got to get rid of. So now this is the big pivot point, it feels like, for Kalas. You're level 5, you're able to start rotating around the map a little bit more, you can put pressure out all over the place. I'm going to see who wins this purple buff fight. Trades Trixtank, who takes it down. Unfortunate for Okeanos there. But doesn't it feel like these next couple of minutes for Kalas, next few minutes, obviously for the rest of the game, this is where this Ares can walk in, maybe you walk up, land a chain, burn some beads, you can really start to make a difference and provide some pressure here over the next few minutes.
And I think it's also that timeline, not only where you can provide that pressure, but really where you can start to transition, like, late game, Scylla's set are going to absolutely demolish you. It doesn't matter how tanky you are, like, that's a lot of damage you're going to have to tank. Right now, it's not as bad, right? So you still have a little bit of wiggle room for opportunity throughout all of that. And that's where I think this is the kind of window of opportunity if you are Kalas to be able to get aggressive. The problem is you're not tanky, so by the, I guess, transitive property, I don't know where you want to go with this one, because he doesn't quite have that health online. Even though Adapting and Angry aren't hitting as hard as they could, it's still too hard for him, right? And so I want to see him get involved. I want to see him be a little more aggressive. I just don't know that there's a lot of opportunities unless that blink is available and there's backup right behind him for him to really start. And that's where Wolfie's come in. This peel from Wolfie right now around these stuns has been crucial. And I think if you can get a stun out just before Kalas goes in, that'll give him just enough time to make sure he gets an ult off, at least burns beads at that point, right?
Right.
Adapting has lost his, so that would be a pull, and that would be a guaranteed kill if you're able to follow up.
Right, I'm going to go ahead and infer from context clues that Kalas blinked in onto Ares, or onto Angry, excuse me, and Adapting. Angry used his ult for the CC immunity, Adapting used his beads, and Kalas ate about half of his HP. So there was a bit of an engagement there from the Ares, and we've now seen that pressure put out. Adapting, as you've pointed out, Gore, no beads on his side. Another few seconds where Angry won't have his ult, but Angry's going to be walking back from base, so no real window there. It's really all this pressure starting to flow and continuing to flow through the duo lane here. Okeanos will dash away. Kalas is here. No ultimate for the Ares just yet. Spudio gets knocked up, though. The chains both weaving through and connecting right where you want him. Ice now wanders on in. Caltrup's on the ground. Piercing Moonlight connects onto the Croc, and Ice has got himself a kill. We called his name, and Kalas steps up big. All the chains connecting, and Ice is the beneficiary.
It's a lot to invest for a support, but at the end of the day, one kill, it means a lot, especially with the way they played last map. Again, Elysium were leading 5-1 in game number 1, and it didn't really make a big difference in terms of the gold output, right? So if Accounting Department can continue on this train, get those kills, Kalas, like you said, having an impact, but Ice being able to chase them down when they do happen to squeak away there towards the very end, that's going to lead to a much larger gold lead than what we got to see Elysium do, because Accounting Department just played the map early game a little bit better. There were so many times that they should have fallen behind that they just didn't. And I think if they can keep up this rate, little picks like that, function as a team, rotate as 3, as 4 to make sure you get these picks, that's going to be, again, just crucial and paramount in their ability to find a win. Unfortunately, there is a certain limit as to how many times you can beat up Trixtank, and I think it's going to be effective for you, but they haven't hit that just yet, so keep doing it.
You're right, keep wailing on him, because if you give Trixtank the space, he's going to make you pay. He does have a 1-level lead over Kalas, but hasn't seen the same level of effectiveness in those plucks that we saw in game number 1. So good things from Accounting Department, keeping themselves relevant in this game after what was a tough start because of this. Deathwalker being looked at yet again. It's the ultimate out from the Osiris. Terrorum right there with his ult as well. Skullcullen continues to be a very popular pick here, Goremizers. Deathwalker going to make it back to base. He will not, but there is a stun awaiting for Terrorum around the other side. Terrorum roars, leaves the range of the Tier 1 tower. Ice around the left side, Adapting, lurking in as well. Both teams collapsing. Will the back be completed this time? No, it's not. Terrorum finally completes the solo kill, and he's going to get out to boot. Kalas has blink. Ice in range. No, he's not. He'll back up beneath his Tier 1 tower, and it's another solo kill over to Terrorum.
I mean, that feels like you just barely get out of there, but there was no one really around to deal with it. Now with Angry making this rotation, this could be big.
Oh my god, that is so easy for Angry. He hits literally everything there. And that's a tanky Ares that just gets taken down. Now Ice beneath his Tier 1 tower. Elysium hell-bent on diving towers here 11 minutes into this game, with the answer from Accounting Department is swift. The crush off to the side, that plays separator. Angry this time on the Sikkim. Does not connect with that ability. Angry trying to weave away from Ice. Tricks Tank right on back in. Is the pluck there? The dash is certainly out. Now Deathwalker is revived. This fight has gone on long enough, and Elysium seem to agree, so they'll leave.
I mean, they're just flirting with death on the side of Elysium. Both Tricks Tank and Adapting. Adapting at this point is just a couple, like one misplay away in the middle of a jungle camp from dying there. But he has enough mana, enough health that I think he's going to be able to walk away from this one. All just on the edge of going down there, but not ever getting eliminated. I just think that's, again, great play from them and good engage to make sure that that happens the way it does. And it gives a lot of open opportunities for them and showcases what their team fight's going to be like, right? Like when things feel like they're starting to spiral out of control here in favor of Accounting Department, at least again, based on what we saw in Game 1 with the way they were able to farm the map, Elysium just don't give up. Tricks Tank is really good at the setup, but Terram has no fear in the world. I mean, he dove that Tier 1 tower, what, 3 times there to get the kill on the Deathwalker? And when you have someone like that as one of your frontliners, I just don't think there's anything that's going to slow you down.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that way, and it's starting to get scary then if you start to consider when he's going to be able to rotate out and get involved in these fights. Gore, in the way that his build has gone, I'll return to that here in just a moment as Kalas gets engaged on double stun on the backside. That's big from Wolfie. Adapting, deleted. Kalas survives. Angry, just shy on the I'm a Monster. That's what we talked about at the beginning of this game, and we said now Wolfie has the ability to make plays instead of just being a part of them. That's Wolfie making a play.
And this is the gameplay I was kind of expecting in Game 1. I was surprised that it kind of ended up, again, kind of being a stalemate for as long as it did, just to then kind of erupt in favor of Elysium towards the end of last game. This is the back and forth I expected out of these two. With all of the history on Accounting Department, it makes sense that they work together well as a team, and now they're getting aggressive. But they're in enemy territory. Angry's just as well over here.
Oh man, Spudio gets taken down now as well. Accounting Department playing their cards properly. Half HP on a few members of the blue side. Elysium might be able to capitalize. Angry there, Sikkim, Crush, that's good. Ice, better Aegis. But Adapting joins the fray as well, and Elysium have pulled one back. Still 3 members of Accounting Department trying to escape. Another Sikkim Crush combo connects, and another kill on over to Adapting. Now Wolfie on the backside has to burn his beads, and Adapting has had enough. A double on over to the set, and Elysium have leveled things up.
That 2 kills, really, really important for them, but I'd also argue all 3 of those beads that I see down, or sorry, the Aegis plus 2 beads there that are now down, it makes it a little easier to come through. And I really am looking towards Wolfie because he's had so much good peel for himself and for his team, but it feels like the shoe's going to drop at some point, right? Or the hat's going to drop, whatever the phrase is. At some point, he's going to get caught out despite the stellar peel. Something's going to go wrong. And I'm wondering when it's going to happen. This is a good fight for them around this Gold Fury. Okeano's mostly healthy, same thing for Wolfie, and long enough range that they can really take a fight without stressing too hard over what they're going to be facing. They're in a really, really awkward spot, though, in terms of who wants to engage. I think Kalas has kind of driven the fear into him, recognizing that there is a lot of counter-engage on the other side. Makes it a little difficult for Elysium to continue, I want to say, just hounding them the way they have. I mean, constantly just being there around every corner, waiting for him to make a mistake. This is the play to make.
This game balancing on a knife edge, and it's tilted a little bit closer to Accounting Department. What a play to sneak away that Gold Fury. Everyone, Gore, playing their parts here, but now Accounting Department with a bit of team play. Get on in under that Fury, grab themselves about a 1,000 gold lead onto their side, so things feeling a little bit more comfortable for the next couple of minutes. Not only because you grabbed the objective, it means Elysium can't get it on their side. Let's see if Deathwalker's in some danger here, taking some damage from Terram on the back end. Adapting is here as well. Weaves out the damage, and once they get the beads from Deathwalker, seem to be happy with what they've gotten there. Elysium are. Now Kalas being looked at by Tricks Tank as well. Ice weaving back and away. A rare missed pluck from Tricks Tank on the Sobek, and that's right there is why it's so important to hit him, Gore. Down to about half HP on his way out, but still poking, still prodding, still looking for these fights, pushing that advantage, or Elysium, despite being a little bit behind in gold.
That's the biggest thing. Very similar to last game. It's kills like this. If you can find it, Ice is going to get some good return damage, but that is just the end of the road for him. What else can Accounting Department do, though?
Wolfie's found a stun over the wall. That's forced Adapting out of this fight. Now Tricks Tank lurking in the waters, and Terram joins the fray. transforms at the perfect time. It's a double stun on the back end from Deathwalker. Will he survive? No, he won't. Killing spree from Terrorum. Now Collis has to work his way back to the tier 1 tower. This is very low HP. I'm not sure Accounting Department want to stay and defend. They sure don't. Elysium find 2 more in a tower to boot.
I mean, this is just good control, adapting, again, low health, but he goes off exactly where he gets some pressure, right? Clear up that wave, now there's a minion wave walking into the tier 2. Sends Collis off to the other side. Trickstank might go down here, but this is looking like a good fight for the rest of the team.
What is that damage from Angry? That was a 75% HP. I'm a monster, it feels like. Okeanos will survive thanks to his Aegis. Wolfie had to use both actives and dies anyway. Angry deletes Wolfie there out of the mid lane. Gore, both of these mid laners carrying their weight. That's a 3-1-2 Agni and a 2-0-3 Angry. The big difference though, Gore, there's a 2-level difference there in the mid lane. Just through the flow of this game, Angry has been able to outfarm and out XP Wolfie at a few different stages of the game.
And honestly, Angry, this build, specifically the Spear of Deso into the Ratatouille, like this has been the kind of blanket build I've seen for pretty much every mage so far the last couple of weeks here in the SCC. Yep. So it's just a lot of power, right? I mean, when you finish Ratatouille, it's 160 power. Like that's so big of a number to get. It's a huge, heavy gold. Sorry, it's 140 now. The number in my brain is still 20 off because it was taken down a little bit. But you get a little bit of penetration off of it, and all of that extra bonus power that you're going to get off of your abilities is just so powerful in, again, every single fight that you get to come through. It's such a huge spike that if you're someone like Scylla, like, you're going to tear through people the way we saw Paul tear through people at Worlds, right? Like, you just do so much damage, it's difficult to deal with. Whereas Wolfie, it's all around that stun we just saw not connect.
Look at Terrorum, absolutely ruthless. Triple knockup. Thorns come out, Collis with the pull. That's a double pull right beneath the tier 2 tower, and Trickstank evaporates under the damage of Wolfie, and Terrorum will lurk his way away. I'm a monster over the wall. Doesn't look like Angry connected onto anyone there, or if he did, no kills came of it. That's the fire you're playing with if you're Elysium. If you go too far, you're just going to get pulled under this tower by Collis, and then 2 kills swing right back to Accounting Department.
I mean, it's one of those moments. Most of those kills, at least the 2 kill swings after the fact, have been going the way of Elysium. So at this point, they still have a comfortable lead because of all those prior fights. And again, said it earlier, eventually picking on Sobek is not going to be as, you know, what's the word, fruitful, I guess, for your team as it is late game. I mean, it is just not as helpful. And at this point, when I look at a support slash line, I see 0-3, 0-4. It means, yeah, you're doing a good job of keeping them down, but I'm a little more worried about Scylla, who's got 0 deaths. No one is able to get to Angry. Same thing, Wolfie has only died once. No one is getting to them consistently. And I think that just showcases, like, Trickstank will happily add that number, you know, make it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deaths if it means that no matter what, at the end of the day, Angry is still walking out alive. If you can, you'd like adapting to be there too, but it doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. They have that a little over 1,000 gold lead, hovering around that 1,500 mark. Oni Fury about to spawn back up. There's a lot of places for him to go on the map to either solidify even more of a lead, or in the case of Accounting Department, if they find another really solid pick on the adapting, maybe on the Angry, they could really turn things in their favor. 1,000 experience? I don't think that's allowed. We should check what the rules. What is the number? Like, that's absurd in terms of a lead.
Yeah, that is the massive difference. So if you're Accounting Department, you're buying your time, right? We say the gold's on our side, we're at least not that far apart. We're feeling okay as long as we can delay for us to catch up in the levels department. Doing it and getting the kills on a Trickstank is certainly going to be beneficial, lurking in the waters, but the DOT from Collis is enough. Terrorum has rotated in, though. He's found himself a kill here, adapting, wailing away on the Ares. We'll pick up the second kill of the fight now for Elysium. Wolfie has to use the Aegis, but you think Terrorum, you think adapting care about your tower? They sure don't. Under the tower, Terrorum goes for the double kill, adapting, looking to make it the clean old deicide. 20 minutes into the game, Elysium have got it. Big fight from the red side.
Yeah, that one, again, not final nail in the coffin. Look at all the towers. There's 4 standing. You cannot kill a Titan this early on. I mean, unless you have a lot of time on your hands. But 15 seconds until you see Ice Ice. Granted, 30 seconds before anybody else. You've got plenty of time on your hands. Maybe could have pressured out that Phoenix, but I think this is the much better call. You get FG and you can get Pyromancer all in this one back. A lot of gold in your pocket. A huge swing because of this Fire Giant, that power buff, that power play that will come afterward, making things a lot easier for you. And then, Dave, when we look at that gold that wasn't that far apart not too long ago, it's going to be skyrocketing. 5,000 now in favor of Elysium, and that's still with 2 towers standing over there and right. Those aren't going to last there very long. But for me, I think you go probably, what, towers, Phoenix, if you can't get Phoenix, or even if you do, back up and get the Oni. Or if you're feeling really confident, grab the Oni first, get that pressure across all 3. That's really the option, is where do you put that, at the very beginning or the very end of your push? And with everybody backing, just now trying to group up, they might start it up, force a fight over here out of accounting department. Let Angry kind of pop off that 2-0-6, turning into something even more deadly if he gets into the right spot.
4 members of Elysium have reached level 20. 0 members of accounting department have reached that same mark. That's the XP differential, especially now. Those start items getting upgraded. All 4 who are available to upgrade those start items have done so. That's a big power spike in these games. Tainted Breastplate is the election there for Terra, Protector of the Jungle. On over to Adapting. Pendulum of Ages, love that item. Gore, that's what we've seen most of those starters rotate into, and then Death's Embrace down for Spudio. Just how big of a spike is that, though? I mean, these are obviously very good items. Is it the same vibe as just kind of being one full item behind, that just because Elysium have all reached level 20?
It kind of feels like that, right? Like, I mean, it is a pretty big spike to the point where we were hypothesizing at the very beginning of the year that whoever got those first was probably just going to win the game. It hasn't always come out that way, right? You do still have that comeback potential around. But knowing that they still have 2 levels to grind up before Ice or Wolfie or Okeanos are able to get there, that's a big power spike over a really long amount of time here. I mean, you've already gotten 1 Phoenix. You've still got 2 minutes here on a Fire Giant for the power play. You are absolutely going to be able to run the show with this. And because of that, it's enough to say that maybe it won't end the game because of just that. But like you said, It's almost being a full level behind. Like, you're going to feel the brunt of this damage pretty fast.
Yeah, the Phoenix did not stand much of a chance. Trix tank took half of his HP, but Elysium did not care at all, and the Phoenix crumbled quickly. The Oni minions on the right-hand side holding the accounting department minions right where they are. Oni minions lurking down the left-hand side, though. That might open up the door to Elysium to siege in on the mid here. Adapting on the left-hand side. It's going to separate out this fight just a little bit. You know he loves working into the backline. Look at Tarum, though. Half HP, just going to melt away the health bar of Okeanos. Yeah, you thought you could play the game, my friend, but you cannot. Kalas walks too far forward. And now the Ares has gone down. Adapting, wreaking havoc in the backline along with Tarum. The frontliners, the backliners, everyone getting it done. Deathwalker has got to ult away from that fight. Sikkim just wide. Elysium going to try to end here. They all have the FG buff. Only 3 members alive from the accounting department. If they force their damage onto the Titan, this game could just be over. Ice with the last-ditch effort onto the ultimate, but Angry deletes him with Yama Monster, and the Titan eats the second charge. Elysium in 24 minutes will take the set.
I mean, from 1.5 minutes to pretty much 24.5 minutes, I guess shave a little off the top there just to make it accurate. Terrorum did not care about anything in the world. I mean, he was diving towers from the beginning. He did not seem to want to slow down. And that was something, I want to say, very akin to a train, right? Just for a fun fact, if a train sees you right, sitting on the road, it takes a mile for that train to stop if it's at full speed. That's what Tarum felt like. It would take a mile of gameplay to stop him from being as destructive of a force as he was towards the end of that.
Gord, you gave us a fun train fact. We also somehow miraculously didn't talk about the plants on top of the towers once here in this set, so I'm proud of us for that. The games were just so good that we had to stick to it. Elysium, though, they make good on the potential that we knew they had. They take this set 2-0. We'll take a break. The guys on the desk will break it down.
feels like a bit of a statement here made by Elysium. They dropped last week. Everyone's thinking, oh, maybe the EU SCC's up for grabs, and Elysium comes back in and reminds us that they might be a cut above the rest. At least that's how it looked today up against the accounting department. 2-0 for Elysium in this one, Mifflin.
And a convincing 2-0, as you already said, man. Elysium's front line, at least in today's set, is looking nigh uncontestable. The second Adapting and Terram were able to walk into any singular engagement, I think that kind of spelled the end of that fight for the other team. I mean, they just were able to spearhead their way forward the entire time and create space for Angry to do whatever he wants, or allow Spudio to free cast on this Heimdall. It really is, accounting department didn't have an answer to the front line.
And Adapting really went off in this one. I mean, this set really looked dominant. Everyone's talking, I'm saying maybe Athena's one of the best gods of the game right now. Where does Set kind of fall in all this? Turns out he's still pretty good. Yeah, he's making it work. And Terram, as you mentioned, right alongside him. These two worked so well together. This one, the solo kill onto Deathwalker, making it look pretty easy for himself. Look, I mean, accounting department, we've seen them look really good already here in Season 8. There's a team that is definitely practicing and working on it, but in order to contest up against Elysium, seems like they still have a ways to go.
And I think it really is, again, P's and B's. Accounting department in Game 2 really did bring it a little bit more so in line with Standard, but still with that traditional accounting department twist on it. Like, sure, we've got an AoE mage this time around, and we got a Guardian in support, but our Guardian is Ares, where maybe we're going towards an Aphrodite in Game 1 or something along those lines, or maybe our Soul Laner, even though it's going to be a Warrior, is Bellona. I really want them to just move a little bit more so in line with the meta. Play the best stuff, and you're going to have a little bit better results.
Yeah, apologies. This is, of course, Game 1's post-game stats. Sorry about that. But Game 2, maybe even more one-sided than Game 1, a 24-minute victory for Elysium here in this one. Elysium looks like they're back on top, man. I mean, for me, I'm looking at what this team can do. I'm looking to keep Trix Tank off Sobek no matter what. I know he went 0-5, but his impact on the map, certainly very potent. 10 assists for him. I don't know what you do with Angry because you can't give him Persephone. I feel like Scylla is there in the back pocket. He looked good in Game 1 on the Raijin as well. Spudio gets banned out twice and still has a good enough performance on the Heim. This Elysium team looks difficult to stop in their current iteration.
And when you throw your targeted bans towards Elysium, if you want to get rid of Adapting Zhao Kuang, if you're worried about the Hun bots or even the Scylla, as you already highlighted, what's the fallback, right? I mean, if that's
right.
The fallback is Set, that's a pretty tough situation. That's something really hard to deal with. These teams got to do a little bit more homework to prepare for the King.
Well, I can't wait to see what Elysium's going to bring in the coming weeks because they've got a matchup up against. It should be Snake Hunters pretty soon here if my memory serves. Those two haven't played yet because Pandemonium and Elysium have already played, and then Snake Hunters and Pandemonium played earlier on today. So we've got a three-way tie up at 2-1, and you'll be able to see the rest of the EU play later on in the week. I believe it's Saturday at 11 a.m. It is. Saturday at 11 a.m., for Clay Soldiers up against Just F6. Now today we've got one more match coming at you. It'll be the Average Joes up against the Herculean Hoofs. The Hoofs is, of course, Baskin's team, and they're looking to get off to a better start. They have not looked good so far here in this NASCC, hoping to get back on the winning track up against the Average Joes. So make sure you go grab a drink, grab a snack, whatever you got to do. We'll be right back here in just a minute as we head into North America to close out the NASCC.